a young man thinks, says the whole world, the whole universe can't be just this cave. There must be something beyond the cave. So he tells all the people around him, the older, the seniors. He says, let's explore. The senior people tell him, you think we're fools here? You think we haven't thought of it? There's nothing beyond. You're born here, you die here, that's finished, that's it. That's what happens here. There are people who say, you live only once, you enjoy yourself, you die when you have to finish, that's it. That's all there is to life. But this young man, out of respect for the elders, he accepted it, gulped it, and tried to carry on with his life. But once the lure of the infinite, as a great writer said, once the lure of the infinite grips you, you cannot be happy with what you're doing. You just can't be content with what everybody else, with the mundane. So this thought kept gnawing at him. There has to be something beyond this. And then he understood the rest of his community were not with him. And then he plucked up enough courage to explore by himself. So he went away from the fire. And when he turned a few corners, he got into a frightening situation where there was no light at all. He had lost sight of the little light that was coming from the fire in the cave, and he had not yet reached the mouth of the cave. And that's when the doubt came. He said, maybe these elders in my generation were right. Maybe there is nothing beyond. But that conviction that he had kept him going. And when he kept going, he reached a state where suddenly, in the distance, he saw a faint glimmer, like a diamond sparkling. And that gave him this confidence that he was on the right track. And with this renewed confidence, he continued and eventually got to the mouth of the cave. And when he came out and he saw, can you imagine the transformation? Can you imagine a person who's only been living in a cave in darkness, suddenly comes out into the open and he sees what you and I see every day. The brilliant sun and the trees and the birds here in Delhi, the magnificent birds you hear and see. Peacocks and etc., etc. The moon and the stars and all that. And he was in ecstasy. He enjoyed this. He reveled in this new experience of his for a few days. And then suddenly he thought of the generation back in the cave. He thought of his community back in the cave. And he said, I must go back and bring them all out. Just as when you have a new ice cream, what do you feel? I must introduce this to my family if you like it. So he, almost against his wish, went back into that cave, into the stench and the lack of oxygen and all that. He went back and with great enthusiasm and vigor, he started speaking to them about what? The sun, the stars, the meadows, the flowers, the fruit, the birds, the animals, the sounds of nature, etc. And what happened? They didn't understand a word of what he was saying. And because they didn't understand what he was saying, they said, we always knew this guy was a little odd from the beginning. I said, listen, you've come back, thank God you've come back, you go to sleep now and we'll get back to normal. In that community, there happened to be another young boy, another youngster, who, when everyone was asleep, came up to him, tapped him on the shoulder and he said, come on, let's go, I'm with you. So this time the journey was even better because he'd been there before. And he brought this young man out, and both of them enjoyed the new experience for a few days, and after that he told him, he said, now it's your turn to go back and pull out one more person. And this is the Guru Shishya Parampara. This metaphor of Plato brings about, portrays the spiritual journey so beautifully. Why are we all here today? Because each one of us is like that young man who in this cave of material worldly life, somewhere deep down you have this feeling that there has to be something beyond what is obvious. Life can't be just being born, eating, growing, breathing, decaying and dying. There has to be something beyond it all. And once this feeling gets into you, then the search begins. And when you start the search, the people around you, you're totally out of sync with them. You're coming to the Gita lectures and they are reveling in a discotheque or nightclub or whatever it is that they're doing. Just, we are a group of 6 people who've come from Bombay. And amongst us, there are 2 youngsters, one girl who has just completed her 10th standard exam and a boy who's just completed his 12th standard exam. You know what children are. After their exams, they had all planned to go to, one had planned to go to Goa with her friends for a holiday. I'm sure the boy had other plans. And they cancelled those plans and they told their friends, we're going to Delhi to attend Gita lectures. Their friends told them, you've lost it. And the young girl said, you've lost it, I found it. This is it. So when this thing comes to you, when this awakening comes to you, you take a completely different course of action. And the other people around you just don't understand where you're coming from. Then you pursue it. These 2 are here. Maybe somewhere down the line in the 3rd, 4th day, they'll start thinking, where am I going? I'm with the people who are old. Like a little kid called me Dadi Ji this morning. All old people we're around with, where am I going? What am I doing? They get into this stage. Every spiritual aspirant gets to a stage of doubt, indecision. Am I doing the right thing? Because you're not doing what the majority are doing. The doubt comes to you. Yet, in and through this, if you pursue, somewhere down the line, things start going right with you. Amazingly, almost miraculously, everything falls in place and life becomes smooth. That's when you get this renewed confidence. You feel, yes, I'm on the right track. You continue and then you come to the mouth of the cave. You get to that state where Buddha said, I am awake. The question is, how many of us have that conviction? How many of us have the consistency, the belief, the faith to continue with it? Yes, there are struggles because you are alone against the majority. Yes, there are problems, there are challenges. But as I said earlier, the challenges are all within, they're not outside. Something in you gives the doubt. Why is so-and-so saying what he's saying? Why is this one doing what he's doing? Pettiness, self-centeredness, ego comes in the way of our pursuit. But you must have the courage of this young man, of these 2 young people who've come. On your way out, you'll see them outside. There's a counter there where cassettes are available. Please don't go and overwhelm them. They'll get scared. But they've come of their own volition. A 10th standard girl and a 12th standard boy. So if anybody tells you that the Gita is meant for old people, you give them their example. So this is it. When you get a glimpse of the higher, as these 2 youngsters have, then what happens? You give up desires of going to Goa. Right? So a person who has reached that state of perfection is one who has given up all desires, physical, emotional and intellectual, as a result of that vision of the 4th plane of consciousness. That we don't know, but all that you can do is understand up to the intellectual, physical, emotional, intellectual, then extrapolate it to understand what must be that state, the 4th plane of consciousness. Verse 56.
दुःखेष्वनुर्विघ्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते.
One whose mind is not perturbed by sorrow, who does not yearn for joy, who is free from desire, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. Now, in this verse, he is answering the question, how does he sit? What makes him tick? What's going on inside of him? You see, the problem is, in any growth, a father who's a scientist, who is engrossed in his research the whole time, and he has a 5-year-old child. If you were to interview the child and ask him, so what does your father do? What will he say? He has no access. He doesn't understand what the father is doing. But he views it from his limited perspective and he says, oh, my father leads a very boring life. What does he do? He wakes up every morning, he goes to his lab and he's stuck there the whole day. He comes back, he has dinner and goes to sleep. Very boring. I don't want to become like him. I lead an exciting life. I go out with my friends, I go to the garden to play, I do so many things. My father is boring. You see what's happening is, the child has no knowledge of what makes the father tick. What is it that engrosses him? What is it that captures his imagination so much that everything else fades into insignificance? So the child sees only the negative aspect, because he hasn't grown to the state where he understands what the joys of research and discovery and invention. Similarly here, we as children, spiritual children, look up at a person of perfection. We just can't understand what makes him tick. All that we see is he's indifferent to the world. Nothing seems to attract him. Nothing in the world seems to give him joy. So it frightens us. We believe that the state of perfection is a boring state. And all that even the sincere among us who want to reach the state of perfection, we look at only his physical attributes. How does he eat? What kind of food does he eat? Then you look at the food he eats, is boring. Sattvic food is the most boring, according to ordinary person. There's no chatpata thing, there's no chaat, there's nothing in his diet. Then you look at his clothes, it's the same boring stuff that he wears every day. There's no variety, there's no designer clothes, there's nothing. Nothing seems to excite him. So that is why Arjuna is asking this question. And every one of us should ask that question. What makes for perfection in an individual? And this makes it, our job becomes even more complicated, because right through history, people who have reached the state of perfection have shown different physical attributes, have lived different lifestyles. One has lived in opulence, a king. Janaka, for instance, was a king. The other has lived in utter poverty, Sudama. One lived the life of a celibate. The other, Krishna, had 16,000 wives. So your question is, do I become a celibate? Do I have 16,000 wives? You follow whatever suits you. Then you want to get married, if Krishna had 16,000, why can't I have one? When you get fed up, you say, oh, Buddha gave up his wife, let me also give up my wife. It's not a question of convenience, it's a question of inner state. So this is the question that he's asking. And the answer that Krishna gives, how does he sit, what goes on inside him, is one whose mind is not perturbed by sorrow, who does not yearn for joy. Now when you read this, again it creates confusion. So what kind of a life is it where you're not excited by joy, you're not dejected by sorrow? No, I'd much rather have my state, is what you say. So you need to understand what he's talking about. Again, let's get back to what we understand, what we know. A plant inherently doesn't have the kind of emotion that you and I have. For instance, if you were to go to a plant and carry on a conversation with a tree and say, your offspring, your seed that came, it died. The plant has no capacity to go into mourning or feel sorrow. Or if you go and tell the tree that, your first seed, or first child, first offspring has grown into a magnificent tree and is doing wonderfully, the tree cannot enjoy it, can't feel joy at it. So the plant doesn't feel either joy or sorrow. At least not in the way that you and I feel it. When you come to the animal state, an animal is transacting with emotions a lot. The animal feels joy, the animal feels sorrow. In a home, yesterday, I happened to go to a home where they had a huge dog, it was more like a horse. And it was quite mild actually. The moment we entered, the lady who came with me, she's afraid of dogs. The strange thing is, she spotted the dog, I didn't. And then the dog came charging at us out of sheer joy. The lady almost passed out because she thought the dog was attacking. This emotion. Now you cannot tell the dog, you can't talk logic with the dog and say, listen, this lady is afraid of you, don't come like this. The dog doesn't understand. When the dog feels joy, it has no choice but to express that joy. Suppose somebody else were to enter the gate and the dog for some reason takes a dislike for that person, and that person may be a VIP, a very important guest who's come into your house. You can't tell the dog, look, this man is a VIP, he's a person that I've been wanting to invite for a long time and he has condescended to come to my home, and here you are barking away, keep quiet. You can't tell the dog that. So the dog, the animal feels emotions, but the animal, there are two things that happen with the animal. The animal is affected by the emotion, and the animal must necessarily act on that emotion. Now, take us, human beings. As human beings, we have the capacity to feel intense emotion, much more than any animal. Yet, the human being is design-minded. Most of us are not living up to it. We're designed not to be affected by the emotion, and we're designed to act on the sane counsel of the intellect. So what he's saying here is that live up to a perfect individual is one who lives up to the status of a human being, where he feels emotions intensely, deeply, but he is not affected by the emotion. His mind is not perturbed by sorrow, nor does he yearn for joy. This doesn't mean he doesn't feel the emotion. He feels it. He's not affected by it. And he is able to operate independent of that emotion with the help of the intellect. This is a very important aspect that we need to understand. As you all know, we are from Bombay. Do you know one food item, one snack that is associated with Bombay? Bhel puri. Right? Bhel puri is a snack that is somehow associated with Bombay. So wherever it is available, it's called Bombay Street, Bombay. Do you have one Bombay cafe here? What is unique about that bhel? Why is it so popular all over the world? Wherever there is an Indian, you find that bhel puri. Is that it is a unique mixture of opposites. It is sweet it is spicy. It's crisp, it's moist. Impossible combination. And it is these opposites combined together that lends charm to that snack. That's what makes it so attractive. Similarly, friends, life that is presented before us is a mixture of opposites, pairs of opposites. And this is what lends flavor, lends charm to life. So in this bhel of life, you need the capacity to enjoy it. You need to cultivate a taste for it. Once you cultivate a taste for it, you understand sometimes there's sorrow, sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's good things happening, sometimes there's bad things happening. Sometimes people say nice things to you, sometimes people say not so nice things to you. If you learn this art of enjoying bhelpuri of life, then whatever comes your way, you're able to take it in your stride. This is important because what you need to understand is that the world is a mixture of pairs of opposites. You can never have only one and not the other. However bad things get, there will always be joy also in your life. And however happy your life may be, there will always be some sorrow. So you become a successful individual, you become a human being only when you learn this art of accepting both. And when you learn this art of accepting both, then you're fine. But in life today, you want only profit, you don't want loss. How is that possible? A person who wants only profit and no loss must give up the business and join a government office. There is no loss there. It's a steady thing, neither tremendous profits nor loss. But if you want to be in business and you want only profits, there's an impossible expectation. So the fundamental thing that one needs to learn in life is to understand what life is all about. Understand what the world is. You know, when you play a game, the first thing that you do is learn the rules of the game. Once you learn the rules of the game and you abide by the rules, then you have some chance of winning in the game of life that you have entered into. You're already in it. First thing that you need to understand is learn the rules of the game. Assess your environment. Once you assess the environment, once you assess the world, you learn to take it in your stride. Then he says, who is free from desire, fear and anger. Desire is defined as a plan that you entertain in your intellect to complete an incompleteness that you feel within yourself. What is happening is, from birth to death, we are haunted by this feeling of incompleteness, unfulfillment, inadequacy. And it is this feeling of incompleteness that results in thought forces arising in your mind that go out into the world to capture, conquer things of the world in the belief that if I get something from the world, that will help me to complete this incompleteness. It sounds very logical, but what the Gita tells us is there is a fundamental flaw in this whole scheme of things. The fundamental flaw is that the reality, the truth is that in fact you are not incomplete. You are not unfulfilled. You are, even right now, as you are, totally fulfilled, totally complete, whole, W-H-O-L-E. But when you don't know that you're whole, for some strange, inexplicable reason, you don't know that you're full. And when you don't know you're whole, this ignorance of your fullness creates an imaginary hole, H-O-L-E, void in your personality. And all our aspirations, all our goals in life, or whatever it is that we're doing, has come out of this imaginary incompleteness. What a tragedy. If you really were incomplete, it's understandable whatever it is that you're doing. But you're full. You don't know you're full. And because you don't know you're full, you imagine an emptiness. And you're rushing out into the world to make yourself full. You will never get full. Do you understand that? You will never achieve that satiation or fulfillment by chasing the world.